Are you ready?
Yes.
Hey! I know, I already asked you that. John Peckman Podcast, Connecticut Valley School of Music and Dance, beautiful downtown Portland, Connecticut. Come over the bridge, start looking left if you want to have your very own podcast here. Stay tuned at the end of the show. Dave will tell you how. Like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. And I just want to say, before we start, any of my friends or colleagues that are listening that are waiting for me to ask you to be on the show, you just hit me up because I don't know who's listening. I'm not playing favorites, although today I am, as I will say from now on to everyone. Anyway, you want to be on with me and yakety yak, just hit me up and we'll get it on. But we're here today with Mr. Pete Veru, old friend.
How are you, John?
I'm fine. How are you?
It's great to see you in person instead of on the phone.
I know. Pete's one of the late night calls.
Yes.
Because you're in
Boulder, Colorado.
Yes. Which is 3 hours.
Two.
Okay. So I've been calling.
You're the only guy I can call on the East Coast after 10 o'clock my time. And I know that not only are you awake, you're just getting started.
Yeah. Yeah, get right into it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Midnight, I'm just clearing my throat.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm ready to roll. Yeah, definitely. So Pete, I've known Pete. So I had a band with Pete and Jim Chapdelaine, who was here, and Jay Wiggin, who was here.
Yes.
And we had a band called Feather Merchants back in the, what would you say? When did
late 90s through the aughts.
Yeah. Got involved in that band. It was one of the coolest things by far. I would have been fine if that was what I did for the rest of my musical career.
I know you feel that way.
I would have been okay with that.
Yep.
But that's where I met Pete, is playing music together. But Pete has an interesting history, which I don't know how do you want to start?
Oh, okay. Well, I had a typical music career. I started on Wall Street for 17 years as an institutional junk bond trader.
Never touching an instrument
until I guess I started playing. I don't even know. No, it would have to be in the low to mid 90s.
Yeah.
And then in 2001, I left the business, and we were already a band for 3 years.
Yep, that's right.
In 2008, I went to George Washington University and got a master's degree in history, and then found my way to the University of Colorado, where I got a PhD in history.
Wow.
And I am presently writing a book that approximately 0% of your listeners will be interested in. So.
Oh, perfect.
Yes.
Well, at least it's not zero. I thought you
exactly.
said zero.
Yeah. But that is how all of this unwound.
Crazy.
Absolutely crazy.
Not a typical path.
No, not at all.
What possessed you to pick up a guitar?
Well, that actually is a simple question. In 1981, when I was a freshman at the University of Hartford,
okay,
I met a guy named Andy Glacken.
Oh, okay.
And that guy...
So you're originally from where?
Fort Lee, New Jersey.
Okay.
I went to the University of Hartford on a tennis scholarship.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I was a terrible student at the time. I just wasn't really connected with school at all. Sure. And, they were willing to pay me to come and play tennis. So I'm sure I'm doing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Every university in the world's got a guy like Andy Glacken. Because he had the coolest records. He could play bass. He could play guitar.
Yep.
And at the time that I got to school, I was listening to James Taylor and Carole King and Paul Simon. Not, obviously.
Yeah, great music.
But it was pretty limited. I had my dalliance, as every New Jersey boy did, with Bruce Springsteen. Sure. But I got there, and all of a sudden, the guy just blew my mind. Totally. Yeah, sure. Totally blew my mind. And he had he was like a magnet.
Yeah.
He had all of these other kids who I wanted to meet that were hanging around him. So it just kind of spiraled out there. Drew played in two bands at the University of Hartford. One was Drastic Change, with Jeff Perfader and I think Mark Britton. And then he was in a band called The Commuters, which you may or may not remember.
Right. I do. I do.
Yeah, right. You may have crossed over, but they also maybe a little early for you too, right? And after that, I completely lost touch with him.
Oh, wow.
I started my career on Wall Street. I spent 9 years at Bear Stearns. In the early 90s, I don't even remember the context of this, But in the early 90s, I reconnected with Drew, and he was with Andy. And then when I re-met him, he was Drew.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I only ever knew him as Drew.
Yeah. So. And he had completely changed. He wasn't listening to prog rock anymore. He wasn't listening to new wave. Of course, new wave was over.
Sure.
He wasn't particularly interested in grunge. It was all roots music. Right. I mean, we're talking old-timey stuff here, John.
Sure.
And he had changed he was playing guitar and bass still, but he was also playing lap steel. He was playing mandolin.
Right.
And all of that happened because he was playing in a band with our mutual friend, Jim Chapdelaine, called Mr. Right.
Right. Correct.
And that's how he kind of got started.
Yep.
He went through a divorce. It was rough. I was living in Manhattan. I was living way below my means. I had this extra bedroom in my apartment. I was like, listen, why don't you just move down here and take a shot? At the time that I invited him to come and live with my spare room, I was getting the idea that I was going to be in a band.
Oh.
And
you started playing guitar by this point.
Absolutely. I was playing guitar. I saw an interview with Andy Partridge from XTC.
Yep.
You and I are both connected over that.
Yep.
And he said the reason I got into songwriting was because I couldn't play anybody else's music. And that's really the truth.
Sure.
For me too. I just couldn't. I tried to sit there.
Hey, man.
I had a process. I would play these songs over and over again. By the time I got almost to the point where I was finished with them, I got sick of playing them.
Yeah.
So,
right.
I mean, and the other people, they could pick it up a lot quicker. So from my standpoint, I was just gravitated towards the songwriting thing.
Sure.
I took out a couple of ads in the Village Voice, and I put together a truly awful version of the band that ultimately became Feather Merchants.
Sure.
And Drew actually said to me, if I had just moved here 6 months earlier, you would not have.
Wow.
You would not have made these mistakes. I'm like, well.
Yeah. Right. I see.
Fine.
So you started that before he came down.
I did, and then he came in. He played electric guitar in Feather Merchants. He was good. He was a very competent electric guitar player.
Yeah.
And we got to the point like where we needed a gig demo.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, what do we do? He goes, well, we should go up to Jim Chapdelaine's studio.
Right.
We went up there with this, band of not very good musicians, and I'm at the head of that list at this point in my life. Right.
Yeah, but you're writing the songs.
I am, but I really was not. I had not yet been to Chapdelaine boot camp yet.
Right. Yeah.
So we went up there. We had a quickie 1, 2, 3. Recorded 4 songs. Jim mixed them as best he could. I mean, you can only do so much. And then we started playing out in New York City. We had a lead singer that wasn't that good. It just wasn't a great lineup. Anyway, we were fortunate enough that one of the songs that was on the gig demo got picked to be in a movie called Above Freezing.
Oh, okay.
I knew the director. He heard the demo. He's like, I can throw this into the movie. I think it would probably work. And I was like,
yeah. Go ahead.
You would do that? And he's like, yeah, man, why not? So we played. We went out to Seattle with this truly awful. Well, actually, what happened was the night of the premiere, we played a gig afterwards at a place called the Luna Lounge on Ludlow Street.
Okay.
In Manhattan. And Jim came because he was the guy who produced the song. So
I got you. Yeah.
This is kind of a funny story. Jim's looking at our band. I said, I can't get off the stage, and I asked him the 4 words that you just don't know what's coming is, what do you think?
Yeah. I was thinking.
So he says, the lead singer is serviceable. The songs are pretty good. The bass and drummer are terrible.
Oh.
And
Drew's playing guitar.
Yeah, Drew's playing. Okay. And Drew, he's
sure.
You ask Jim Chapdelaine, who's a good guitar player, he's thinking in terms of him, and not everyone's going to pass the test.
Sure.
And I said, well, what would it take to get you into the band?
Oh boy, yeah.
And he said, well, you'd have to get rid of the bass player and the drummer. You'd have to move Drew over to bass.
Wow.
And
I didn't know all this.
That's why I'm telling you, John. See how it works, John?
Yeah.
You see how the whole thing comes together?
Yes.
And I went home that night and thought about it for about 43 seconds.
Yeah.
And I called the bass player and the drummer and I said, I'm sorry, we're going on without you.
Oh, boy.
It was a much easier call, actually, than you might imagine.
Oh, really?
And I called Jim the next day. I said, all right, I fired the bass player and the drummer.
Yeah,
and he's like, well, wait a minute now. Hold on.
Yeah.
That's not how this works, Pete.
Yeah, right.
I was like, what do you mean? He goes, normally, I tell somebody that, they don't listen to me. And 6 months to a year later, they're still nowhere.
Yeah.
I said, well, I don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, right.
We're not messing around here.
Sure.
So he said, well, I got to talk to my wife, who's Janine, and lovely Janine Chapdelaine.
Yeah.
And he called me back a half hour. He said, I'm in.
Wow. Just like that.
And that was the beginning of Featherman. I said, okay, look, we got Drew's going to be on bass. We got the lead singer. I mean, jury's still out. We'll see what we can do there.
Okay.
Who do you like for drums?
Oh, boy.
And he said, look, I got this guy. He's over in Wallingford.
He's weird. He's a jerk.
He's a little bit of a character.
Oh, did he really say that?
I believe that was the word that he used.
Okay. All right.
He's a little bit of, but boy, can he hit them skins.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'll leave it up to you. And that drummer's name was John Peckman.
Come to find out.
Luckily,
I'm not a character anymore. No,
that's right. That's right. That's right. And that's how I just basically covered about 20 years of thing. Now, by the way, while all this is going on, Drew Glacken is becoming the side man of choice. In the East Village roots rock scene. And the way that happened was when he first got there, he was playing Happy Hours, Rockin' Robin and Mustang Sally and all that stuff. And we were in a guitar store because I was buying vintage guitars. A lot of people don't know this. Drew was an encyclopedia of vintage guitars.
Yes.
Had he had any facility with money, and he had no facility with money,
right,
he probably would have been one of the really important guitar dealers.
Right.
He just really understood value. He knew how to build value. He'd take two lesser guitars and he'd buy a guitar that was worth a lot of money at a low cost. He just could put all this together.
Yeah.
We went to one store on Carmine Street, Carmine Guitars. And we went in there and Drew had this thing. Saturday, we'd go to all these guitar stores. He'd get a lap steel, and he'd ask the guy, can I play this?
Yeah.
Well, these guys caught on that he was so good at this that he could make it look like it's easy.
Yeah, right, sure. Yeah.
And it's not.
No.
Right? It's not easy at all. Right?
No.
And these, dentists and doctors would come in, they're like, I could do that. Jesus.
Oh,
kid.
I see.
So we were in there. He asked the guy to plug in an amp.
He's like a hustler. He's like a pool hustler.
Kind of. Yeah. a little bit. These guitar store owners figured it out. Like, yeah, of course you're going to play.
Yeah.
In comes a woman named Emily Duff and her writing partner and bandmate, Michelle Johnston.
Mm-hmm.
And while they're talking to the guy that owns the guitar store, she looks over to me and him and says to Drew, dude, you're killing me with that thing.
Yeah. Who are you?
And the next day, Drew was in Eudora.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of his rise in the city. He really became certainly in demand at that point. And wow, I mean, what do you want to say? He ended up he was playing with all these singer songwriters. Tom Freund. What the hell was that game? Alex Deason.
Yeah.
He got into the Silos with Conrad Meisner and Walter Salsumara and Tom Freund, a great guy. And when I was at work, he would have these guys at the apartment, rehearsing. There was another band too, Spottiswood and His Enemies.
I don't know if I remember that.
I forgot the guy's name, John something. He's going to kill me. He's a Facebook friend of mine. I forgot his name. And this went on for a long time. And by the way, it was not uncommon for him to go down to like South by Southwest and play 20 times in 7 days, 6 days. Yeah, just set up an amp for me, write the chords down, and I'll just come in and play lap steel for you.
Well, he growing up around here, around the scene, up in Hartford, he was one of the major cats around. Even just when he was a bass player, he was just like one of the most natural musicians that everybody knew.
Really almost bigger, like an entertainer, really. He had this aura about him. He was like the mayor of Pratt Street for a while. He was playing in the Monster Band. I know you had Ramon Morant on here.
Yep.
It was a prog rock band, but he really connected with Jim and Mr. Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And
that was a great band.
Really, really, really good band. It wasn't what I was listening to at the time. I was listening to a lot of 4AD music.
Right.
That's a label,
Sure.
And I got hit with the Dead Can Dance polo mallet like you did too.
Yep.
When I was in Tower Records. But your story about how you found that band, you have to tell.
Oh, all right. I'll try to make it quick.
Yeah.
All right. Dead Can Dance. How do you explain them?
Kind of early music, not quite world music. If you're talking world music from the 17th century or 16th century.
Yeah. It's not something that you would put it this way. It's the last music you would hear in a strip joint in New Orleans, which is where I first heard them, which doesn't make any sense at all.
Right. Exactly.
So I guess maybe some people, wrongly, but how else could you refer to? I guess it's like goth music, but not really.
But
for some people,
thanks for teeing that up. You go to their concerts and you're going to see guys like me, music heads.
Right.
You're going to see lots of Europeans and Middle Eastern people.
Right, because they have a Greek strain.
Absolutely, because Lisa Gerrard, she cut her chops in the Greek restaurants in Melbourne.
That's right.
She's
remember your parents. We saw Dead Can Dance, and your parents went. Yeah.
Not only did they go with us to Radio City Music Hall, when they went to Greece, they bought tickets and went to see the band.
Right. So there's a whole other thing that we don't even.
My parents don't do that.
Yeah.
It's like they never did anything.
They recognize something.
They absolutely hit their chord because there's Brendan Perry playing bouzouki.
Yeah.
Lisa Gerrard, she's a generational talent in my view.
She can do anything.
Yeah, exactly right. So that to me was a big thing. I was listening to a lot of Throwing Muses, all because of Drew. Drew played this. I highly doubt I would have had the life that I had musically without Drew.
Yeah,
I would have had the Wall Street career, I'm pretty sure. But the other stuff, he just pushed me off. You're going down that road. I know you were heading down that road. But
that's the way Drew. Yeah. What he was into, you were into.
That's exactly right.
Definitely.
So that's the kind of stuff I was listening to. So I wasn't really into the Mr. Right thing, but I did love seeing them live.
Yeah. Great band.
Really love seeing them live. You could just tell. I was like, Jesus, these guys are great. Jeff Thompson, Jim Matus. Yeah, right.
Yeah, the cream of the crop.
It was really, really good stuff. So we had our team together, going back to Feather Merchants.
Sure.
And I booked some time. With Jim Chapdelaine.
Yep.
He was going to be the producer and the lead guitar player.
Mm-hmm.
And we went up to Jackson Avenue.
Yep.
Which there was really a lot of creative stuff going on at that place.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, me and Jim, we weren't new, but we were right at that point where me and Jim were just starting to work together more and we had a synergy going on.
I remember that.
We were kind of in our bromance or whatever.
Right.
And that was Feather Merchant was a huge part of it. We all came together right at the right moment. Me and Jim were firing, and then you had songs. Everybody was firing.
Jim was like putting mics on ceiling fans and creating his own Leslie's, putting mics at the top of an outside stairwell and the amp at the bottom. Also, we don't really talk about this, but Jim was a pioneer in digital recording in this state.
Yeah, no, he did more with 2 ADATs.
Yeah.
Than anybody.
And I think he had Pro Tools 1.0.
And then and then when the Switch came.
Yeah. And all these analog heads who were deriding him for going down this 5 years later, they're asking him, hey, how do I do this on Pro Tools?
Yeah, it's and he's doing whatever he's doing now.
Yeah, right.
He's still ahead.
He's like just racing ahead.
Yep.
But those were incredibly creative days.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
And I'm sitting there trying to put my track on, and there's a click in my earphones. And I'm like, what is that? He goes, yeah, that's called a click track.
Yeah, you got to play to that, yeah.
And I said, well, you're going to stop it? He's like, no, I'm not. I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? He goes, play to it.
Play to it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. So after 5 failed attempts, I went, back to my home and worked on that with the metronome. It's like, well, this is just easy. This is just work.
Well, I mean, that's not your fault either. I mean, you started you picked it up in a different order. Like I say, that work a lot of us do.
So we had that was really creative stuff. I grabbed up Hassan Hakmoon to do that guest vocalist part. I was playing bouzouki.
Yep.
We were doing a lot of really. It was really that album, although it was a hodgepodge of different stuff.
I like that record.
Yeah. I haven't listened to it in a while, but yeah, it was my first attempts, and we had on the back of that record, we had signed a distribution deal with Ryko Disc, which was pretty big.
Yep.
And I think we shipped 7,000 or 8,000 records of that thing.
Yeah.
For a band no one had ever heard of.
Yeah.
No live audience whatsoever.
Zero. Yeah. We never played a gig. We made that. I don't think we did.
Not with you.
Made that record.
Right.
Yeah, not with me.
We had gone out to the Seattle Film Festival to play the Seattle Film Festival. We had a different drummer then.
Yep.
And we made the record when we came back, but that was was kind of what happened. So that was record 1.
Yep. Yeah.
Worked out really good.
Yeah. No, it was a great time. And then record 2.
Record 2.
It was kind of half, I think, because Jim moved. Did we do the whole thing at Jackson?
Well, it was complicated because I decided we moved on from the singer.
Right.
And I put out an ad. I bought 8 weeks worth of ad space in the Village Voice. And the first ad ran September 11th, 2001.
Oh, wow. I didn't remember that.
So I could have just taken that money and lit it on fire for all it was worth. No one was thinking about how we're going to get in a band. People were like, what's tomorrow going to be like?
Wow.
There was a funk, and along those lines, when I got home, Mark, God, can't remember his name. He lives in Colorado now. But he was in a band called 34 Satellite. He actually opened my door when I came home.
Okay.
Drew was making a record for John Cougar Mellencamp's fiddle player.
Oh, okay.
In his upstairs bathroom. Okay. And things just stopped.
Yeah.
I mean, we were not firing on all cylinders. Everyone was really down. It was just. But
we did a rehearsal. Sorry, not to backtrack.
No, go ahead.
We did a rehearsal for something the night before, September 10th. You might not remember, but I do.
I don't remember.
I remember. I took the train home that night, and I had this weird I don't even think I told anybody.
No, you never told me this.
I had this weird panic. I never do this. On the way home, on the train, I had this weird panic attack that there was a bomb on the train. You ever do that in your mind? You start thinking, what would happen if?
Yes.
I have no idea why.
I have an active imagination. That kind of stuff happens.
And I had a minor, felt unsafe for no reason, didn't think anything of it. And the next day was 9/11.
Right. God damn.
Weird.
The first record, was number 12 on the record ad list. We got good reviews. Yeah. We were we had a record deal. I don't think I've even told anybody this. We had a record deal offer from Caroline Records, which I just said, I'm new at this. I don't really know if I should be signing anything.
Yeah.
And I don't even think this record's all that good, but anyway. I went a year. I left Wall Street. I moved out to Montauk, Long Island.
Yeah.
It was like a detox for me.
Sure.
And I was writing music. I was living a block and a half away from the beach.
Sure.
I was writing music, and I got a phone call from Shannon Kennedy.
Yeah.
And she says, "Yeah, I'm answering your ad for a singer." Yeah. And I was like, "Well, good, because we need a singer."
We were at Jackson because I remember. So go ahead. I'll tell you my version.
Yeah. I never asked what was how did Jim sell you on Feather Merchants? Do you even remember?
Yeah, I mean, he was like, I got this project I'm involved in. I need you to play drums. You'll love it. It's this dude. He said it's kind of different. He's not a musician, but he's kind of he's got this songwriting thing going on that's really unique. That was kind of what he said to me. He goes, and so we're going to make these songs work, and I think you'll dig it. And, that was pretty much what he told me. And he just said, we're going to start off just doing session dates. I don't really remember if it was you're in the band, but it was we're going to make this album. because I was making albums for Jim here and there, and in my mind, I think at first it was like just making this record.
Yeah.
But then it was like, oh, this is going to be a band, like, and for whatever reason, I mean, these things happen. I became a fan of the music. Like when making that record, I loved it. I was just like, oh, I love this stuff. So I got drawn. I don't remember how I got drawn, but I immediately was like, oh yeah, I know, I want to do this.
Yeah, and by the way, it was like it wasn't just us at Jackson Avenue. It was Donna Martin and Dana Pomfret and Backroads from Tomorrow.
Backroads, James Velvet was in and out.
That's right, exactly. It was like a little thing going on.
There was a scene.
He had a thing going on there. Yeah. Janine was pregnant with Annie, who, by the way, is now 25, working in New York City.
No, I can't. No, she's not.
No, she's not. She can't possibly be.
No, it was a magic time.
It really was a magic time. Jim had the cockatoo, Dizzy, and Lulu, one of the great dogs.
Yep. So Shannon Kennedy. So yeah, it was like, oh, we're doing singer auditions.
Yeah.
And there was, I think, a few that came in and out, and I was late. So what we did was we had some tracks, and they would come and sing in the studio at Jim's house, sing along.
Yeah.
Right. So get in the studio, put the headphones on, and sing along. And I was late, and I couldn't walk through. Like I came into the kitchen, the studio's downstairs.
Yeah. Right.
And I came into the kitchen, and I was at the top of the stairs waiting for this person to stop singing so I could come through. And I was listening to her sing through the wall, and I was just like, this is our singer right here.
I had no idea.
And I'm like, I hope she's cool.
Yeah.
Like, I hope that she's nice and that she's cool. But I just was listening as a fan, and I'm like, that's our singer.
Yeah.
Whoever that is.
Yeah.
And she was, and it was her.
Yeah, it was. And I had so many bad experiences with singers. I probably did 150 auditions for Feather Merchant's Women. It was like that movie, The Commitments, if you've ever saw that scene.
Yeah.
And
she was the one.
She really was the one. I just needed to make sure that we had the right person. We did. She was so mad that we made her go through all these things.
Do you remember what was the rehearsal joint? Do you remember the elevator?
Yeah, I don't remember the name of the place. Downtime, maybe? It could have been Downtime Studios.
Yeah. Well, we were there, and we were not stringing her along, but we were just kind of like dithering, and we were doing some rehearsal or something, and we were all there. And she just goes, I don't know what you guys are waiting for, but I want to be in this band, and until you tell me I'm in the band, I'm just going to... And she just, ding, the elevator went ding, and she left. And we were all just like... We better tell her she's in the band, or she's gonna.
I think we forgot to tell her that she was in the band.
Yeah, we're like, damn.
Yeah.
I was like, don't let her get away.
I knew I forgot something.
It was so funny. I remember her just going, I don't know what you guys are, and then you heard ding, and she's like, I'm gonna get this elevator. That was it.
Once she got into the band, that was next level stuff.
Yep. Definitely.
It was. I was writing a lot. She had a couple of songs from previous bands. She and I were starting to work together, although not like, big time.
But Jim had stuff too.
Jim had, we recorded.
Temporary.
Thank you.
Yep.
Oh boy.
The drummer wrote a song.
The drummer wrote a song, right? Exactly. The drummer.
The last thing he said before he got fired from the band. Hey fellas, I wrote a song. Yeah. That second album, we were all...
And that song really turned out to be kind of really an outlier, but really one of the most interesting song on the record, for sure. Ursuline was great.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, I think if you go and...
I wrote that on the New Orleans Dead Can Dance trip. That was where that song came from.
Well, that makes perfect sense.
It was that whole ferment of things. I came home from that trip. And
totally makes sense. And that record was called Unarmed Against the Dark.
We didn't really have a bass player yet.
We used Paul Asola from the Saturday Night Live band.
Yep.
And
from my neck of the woods, originally from Meriden. So he was always a dude around, a hero.
Yeah, he was a pro. Frankly, I never thought he'd be in the band. He was too busy.
Right.
We really couldn't. He was used to a certain lifestyle.
Sure.
Plus, he was, I don't know, he used to call the gigs job sites. And that just turned me off.
Yeah.
So I just couldn't get, I didn't want to be going to play a job site,
I know. Well.
And I understand where he's coming from because he's played a million gigs.
Right. Well, I'm saying you're newer to the business.
Right.
We're all
less jaded. I was much less jaded at the time that all this.
And then I went one day, I was like, Jay Wiggin
Jay Wiggin.
Boy, and that was another game changer.
That was a 2-for-1 because Jay's a great singer.
Great singer.
And you and him were in the middle of your bromance, your musical bromance. And that changed. That was the final piece of Feather Merchants.
Jay makes everything better.
Yes, that's right. We were over now on Auburn Avenue, where Jim's house was, in the garage. And boy, were we doing. We were just doing great stuff. We were really, really good. That collection of songs was pretty good. I think probably eclipsed by the final record's worth of songs.
Last Man on Earth.
Although I think there were people that would argue the other side of that. Unarmed Against the Dark did fairly well in radio. It did fairly well in the press. We did a great cover of Heartbreak Beat. Remember that song?
I love. I'm very proud of that.
I know. Jim putting Dobro on that was genius. Totally changed that up. And we were just kind of, we can't forget that Jim's a spectacular guitar player.
Yeah.
And he was just doing his thing, and he was getting his chops. Really, his chops on the on the mixing board were incredible.
Best.
And really good stuff. That record did fine. We got some radio airplay. We got some press. We got a little thing going on in South Africa. There was a woman that was here from South Africa. She took a box of CDs home.
I remember. We were like, we're starting to blow up in South Africa. That's for a second.
We had write-ups in Cosmopolitan, the South African versions of Maxim, Cosmopolitan, People magazine. You think we would get within 9 miles of those publications here?
Yeah. I wonder who knows what it was.
Yeah. I mean, they just kind of liked it. I did an interview with a radio station in South Africa. I was I'm glad you guys are interested. And we've been playing your thing. We had cool. Little pockets of things. In regards to what we were doing in the city, Wall Street people, they're not very cool. And
you don't say.
Yeah, they're not. They're just they're kind of all consumed with what they're doing.
Sure.
And when they can say, I know the guy in a band, they all show up. So we're selling out.
This is their night out.
Yeah, we're selling out brownies. They're buying top shelf liquor. So the owner's like, you guys can come back and play anytime you want. Don't worry about me.
What was happening? I thought it was because we were so great.
Yeah, I mean, we sold out brownies. We moved on. We played the Luna Lounge. We played Mercury Lounge until I picked a fight with them for no apparent reason.
Really? I don't remember that.
I did. Yes, I almost got our CD party canceled.
I don't remember that.
Well, it actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise because we moved on to Joe's Pub, which was a far superior situation. But regardless, we had a little thing going on in Philadelphia. We had The Point, the Tin Angel. We hooked up, remember, with Gray Eye Glances. We were playing with them.
That's right.
We had did a gig or two with October Project. Those people had sold 4 million records. But one of my favorite Feather Merchant stories is that you and we played the Mercury Lounge. And the band that was coming after us was Keane.
Right.
Remember Keane?
I do.
And they borrowed all of our stuff. They had no gear of their own.
Yeah.
They borrowed all of our stuff. They were blowing our sound check until I went to the manager and said, "You look, you think we can sound check now? Because we kind of got to get going."
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, mate. That kind of stuff. And we ended up doing our thing. And then 6 weeks later, I was on my couch, herbally impaired.
Sure.
And my phone rings and it's you. And you said, "What are you doing right now?" I was like, he's like, "Turn on NBC, Saturday Night Live."
Oh, really? I don't remember any of this.
You said, "Turn on Saturday Night Live." I was like,
those dudes.
I said, "Those are the guys that."
Yeah. I don't remember that, but that sounds familiar.
It was absolutely what happened, John.
Yeah.
It was absolutely what happened. I'm like, God.
Yeah, that happened.
We played with them. We played with that guy, Will Hogue. Remember Josh Ritter?
Yep, I do.
That guy's totally famous now.
Yep.
I knew we were in trouble with that guy when his fans started showing up with homemade T-shirts with his name on it.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy looked like Brad Pitt, and these girls are showing up with Josh Ritter.
We heart you.
Yeah,
Josh.
We heart you, Josh. Pretty much is what was going on there. Yeah. I looked at Jim and I'm like, I don't know. I don't think we have much of a chance here. Right? Exactly. So, and we had a great following in New York. We had a reasonable following in Philadelphia.
Yeah. We tried to build something up here. We had a little something.
We had a little something. We made it happen. We played Plug Place Hartford, the Worcester, the Lucky Dog.
That's right. We played at the Lucky Dog.
Oh my God!
Which sadly, let me just say, I think we have is now a pile of rubble. Ooh. Which is very sad. Very sad.
Hard to get good sound off of a pile of rubble.
The Lucky Dog in Worcester, Massachusetts.
And I got to tell you, what was the name of that band we played with? Curtain Society.
Curtain Society.
Love them.
Yeah, great. Yeah, great.
Love them.
Great.
They were so good.
Great drummer.
But my favorite Lucky Dog experience.
Oh boy.
Was Disco Hell.
Easy. When I pulled down the drop ceiling on an entire audience room full of people, accidentally.
Get off! What were you? Did some James Brown song? Get off all the US.
Yeah, yeah. We used to have a wild. Me and Jay Wiggin. Was he in the band then, or
no?
Before
But
Jay?
Junior was there.
Junior was
John.
there.
John.
Yep,
yeah.
John Best. Jr.
Yeah, right. He was there.
I had a crazy disco band that.
Hold on, you've
rogue.
never talked about this in front of other people.
How could I? How do you begin? We don't have enough time.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was a crazy.
That
gig.
should be a documentary. That film.
It should be.
You know, Matt Ziner pulling his pants down and going. Not Matt Ziner.
Matt Starr.
Matt Starr.
The Matt Starr.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, it ain't gonna suck.
Yeah. Oh God. Oh man. We had antics. Let's just leave it at that.
Okay.
Antics.
It was.
But yeah, I told you guys. I was like, you got to come to this gig. You got to see this. You're not going to believe it.
It was absolutely worth the trip times 10.
Yeah, I think if that one particular. So anyway, real quick. So Matt, great drummer. He was the lead singer, and I'm a singer of sorts. And there was a time, a number or two, where we would switch, and I would be the lead singer, and he was the drummer. And I was showing off because Pete and Jim, the fellas were there.
Yeah.
And, packed.
We came for a show, man. You got to give us a show.
It's kind of like the CBGBs of Worcester, wouldn't you say?
Loved
it. Like a cramped, rock club, perfect.
But also
place.
pods of people. Okay, there's the gay people that live in Worcester.
Yep.
These are the metalheads that live in Worcester.
Everybody. Here's the punk kids.
Yeah, here are the punk kids. Here are the goths.
Everybody.
It's like, oh my God, this is perfect.
Yeah, it was perfect. Yeah, we had this weird thing. We kind of hit everybody, and I was out front singing, trying to show off for them. And I jumped up and grabbed the ceiling thinking I was going to, I don't know, I guess do a chin up or something. And didn't realize it was a drop ceiling. And I pulled the whole ceiling down onto the audience.
And fell.
And I fell on top of it, pulled the whole ceiling down and finished the show. And then the next week I came and it was a beautiful copper ceiling. Yeah. Like they're like, we just pulled the rest of it down. Like they just remodeled. The ceiling was original.
Helped them remodel.
I helped them remodel. Yeah.
That was really that was kind of a special night because the story of Disco Hell's even infinitely more interesting.
I don't know if it can ever fully be told.
No, I really would make a great documentary. Just a bunch of guys who were kind of angry no one was showing up and all of a sudden started abusing the audience and like, hey, that's what we want.
Yeah,
we're going to start showing up now.
Yeah, the more that we thought that So we'll tell that story someday.
Yeah, getting back to
the Lucky Dog, but Feather Merchants played at the Lucky Dog, and it was great. We had a great time. They were totally cool.
We played. We were the ones that brought the Damwells to Boston to play at the Lizard Lounge.
That's right.
Only because we didn't have enough music. So I said to Drew, I was like, call Alex Deason. Does he maybe want to come up and do a double with it? Because we need 4.5 hours of music. We just don't have that.
Yeah.
So they did, and that was great. And we played. Oh yeah, remember? Remember the Killington
of course.
Vegan restaurant?
Yeah.
With the dog that came out screaming at us.
So what? All right. So that we were like on this wicked. The thing was, it was like this gig is not that big a deal, but what was it? It was like all radio.
It was.
promo.
I guess I should tell the whole story. Yeah. We were invited on twofold. One to do the river, whatever the river was in Massachusetts, it's a radio station. I forgot where it was.
Yeah.
We were invited to do that by a radio guy named Bob Angel.
Yep.
And our radio guy said, we got a gig for you at a vegan restaurant in Killington. Mm-hmm. And in that town in Killington is a independent radio station.
Up on top of the market.
Conference, right? I was like, well, I have no idea what that means, but we'll do it.
Sure.
We get there. They're supposed to buy us food. The two guys who are in overalls and knit caps. I mean, right out of Central Casting for Vermont. Right? Yeah. And they look at me and they're like, "I know we're supposed to feed you, but if we do, we're not going to make any money tonight."
Yeah, right. Even though there's only 5 of you guys.
Yeah, it's like so. I was like, "Look, give the band whatever they want. Give me the bill. It's totally fine."
Yeah.
Anyway, we set up our gear. It's 8:00. 9:00, there's nobody there. 10:00, there's nobody there.
Right. Yeah.
11:00, there's nobody there. Okay. 11:30, Jim looks at me.
We're like, why are we here?
Jim looks at me. He's like, well, maybe we should just go.
Yeah, we'll just leave.
Just as he says that, about 12 super inebriated disc jockeys show up.
Just like that.
Just like that. They're just totally out of their minds drunk.
Yeah.
And we go up and we play our set of music.
Sure.
And they're like screaming and yelling.
Yeah.
Like, we want to hear it again. So we played the
set, the whole thing,
same set of music again. We want more. So Jay, I think, said, I don't know. You know who it was?
It was.
Yeah, you know.
Eddie?
No, the other guy.
Todd.
Yes.
My friend Todd. Todd Morton.
That's right.
Wow.
Right. He
wow.
Yeah. So now all of a sudden we're playing Led Zeppelin songs.
Sure. We just
like they didn't know or care, right?
Yeah.
And we drove back to our first speeding ticket I ever got was the trip back. Yeah.
Yep. I was making you listen to NRBQ the whole way home.
Oh my God,
like,
that was awful.
I can't wait.
Look, I respected what it is. It was not. I didn't
but you're like, I don't need to hear 3 hours. And I'm thinking, by the third hour, you'll get it. It's like, no, I already.
We were deep into the cuts, right, of this band. I mean, we were getting like the outtakes and all this other stuff. Like, no, just wait. Listen to this.
That's what I do. That's what I. Sorry.
You got to hear this guy, Tommy Ardolino. Boy, he can really.
God, the best. See, I'm already doing it.
Yeah, I know.
So that stupid dog. So I love dogs.
Yeah.
I like to think that dogs love me. You know,
that dog didn't like anybody.
And we go into that restaurant and I'm like, "Hey, buddy," and the dog just kind of like, "Stop petting me. Just leave me alone."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "That's sad." But then as soon as you got food on your plate, dog's your best friend. I'm like, "Screw you."
Yeah, right. You had your chance.
Yeah,
buddy.
You had your chance, man.
We could have bonded.
User.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. Yeah, and then we left. Dog's barking at someone out in the woods. I'm like,
we got to mention. We have one more record to talk about, and we will. But we got to mention that there would not have been a photographic record of Feather Merchants if it weren't for this guy, Bill DeCecca.
That's right. Yep.
Who followed us around.
I know. Can you imagine?
I was like, listen to this. I mean, he'd drive 3-4 hours, and he'd come in and he'd film the band. And where would we have been if it weren't for that guy?
We wouldn't have existed.
I mean, in terms of photographic information, we would not have been. So he was. I was always grateful to him for doing all that stuff, and he just liked the music.
Yeah. Well, what about the first album cover, the painting?
Oh yeah, that was done by my really good friend Norm Magnuson.
Yep.
I love that, and I have the original is hanging in some museum in Alaska.
Wow. Yeah.
They love the 3 sled dogs, boy.
Yeah.
So after Unarmed Against the Dark, I was retired. I was doing music full time. Sure. I wasn't ready to do anything else. And I was writing what I thought was good stuff. Again, I was out in Montauk. I was I was on my way to the beach. Somebody had Court TV on the TV, and I was watching the Leslie Van Houten parole hearings.
Right. And it happened every 5-7 years or whatever.
Right. It's basically like the groundhog or whatever.
I think it just happened again.
It did, and recently. she was approved and then turned down by the governor.
Never getting out.
Yeah, she's never getting out. Just that crazy serial killer.
Yeah.
And not serial killer, but
mass murderer.
Mass murderer. That's what.
Tomato.
Right. So, and I wrote, I wrote Last Man on Earth based on that trial and all the stories that she told about all that stuff. Let's just say I didn't get to the beach. I just was glued to the TV set watching this thing. And again, those were great days because we had gotten enough material together. We were going to go to Jim Chapdelain's studio.
Yep.
This is in 05, I think, or 04.
Something like that, yeah.
And the way I'd get to Jim's house is I'd take the ferry across Shelter Island.
Wow.
Grab the ferry at Orient Point to New London and then drive to Hartford. It was really incredibly
crazy.
You know, I'd also just wrapped up a 17-year career on Wall Street, and I was kind of in a detox from all of that pressure and all of that stuff that was going on. So I felt, from my point of view, it was really heady kind of days. I really felt like the music that was coming out was good. Shannon and I were collaborating on stuff. I was writing songs on bass and giving it to her. You know, and then all that stuff started. Yeah. And we went up to Jim's, and again, you know, he had his game together.
Yeah, yeah. That was sonically the craziest record.
It was sonically the craziest record. It was really reverb drenched, like, you know, stoner folk. I don't know what you want to call it.
Starting to get our thing together.
We really it was really the
and Jay was in the band by now. So
Jay was in the band, and that was the rhythm section was just firing on all cylinders, and I was really. You know, we had jettisoned the bouzouki, the Middle Eastern elements, because Shannon didn't really like it, and if she didn't feel it, what was I going to do? Force that? I didn't want to do that.
Sure.
And we ended up doing this thing, Last Man on Earth. Now, the part about this that I never really talked about was what happened after Jim was done mixing it. He said to me, you know, Greg Calby at Sterling Sound, he had done all of our records. He had mastered all of our records. Yep. He said, Pete, I got an idea. I was like, all right, let's hear it. He goes, in most mastering sessions, I'm not the guy to ask about this, but you would be. In most mastering sessions, it's 2 tracks, and you're going to master the track. You fix something, you set something for one part of it. It may throw the other part of it off. Okay. What Jim did was he busted it down to 25 different stems.
Oh, wow.
Yes, this was kind of like post-mixing.
Yeah.
And Calby and Jim were having like a little love affair themselves.
Yep, sure.
So they had been working together. I think Sterling offered Jim the mastering job in Nashville.
Yeah.
You want to go run the Nashville office?
Yeah, I remember that.
Which honestly, I think is a complete waste of Jim's talents to master records all day.
And he probably thought so too.
Yeah, right. I'm not going to do this. This is like using a shotgun to kill a fly.
Yeah, Janine's Annie's probably still young. In school, just like
exactly. So we went to Sterling Sound, and he really, microscopically mastered this record.
Yeah.
We were one of the first bands to even do this.
Yeah. Mastering stuff.
Jim and Calby's like, Pete, this could take a couple of days. I'm like, let it take as long as it wants. We're onto something here. Let's get it done.
Yeah.
We were able to put out a record that really was the best thing that we had ever done. It was in the college radio top 200 for 14 weeks.
Yeah.
We were getting, one of the records got picked up by a Serbian film director, Change My Night.
Oh, that's right.
Right. And I went to Novi Sad, Serbia for the premiere of this. Wow. That was terrific. We were getting written up by, so many, you know, and truth is, there were people that didn't like us. You're going to get that in any band that just didn't. You know,
sure.
There were people I'm sure that panned Led Zeppelin 1.
Everybody, all the critics.
So, but though that collection of songs was really the best thing that we had done. It really was.
I agree.
Yeah. Right when things were winding up, Drew Glacken died.
Yep.
And as I said, Feather Merchants kind of started with Drew Glacken. He's the one that gave me the name Feather Merchants, which I hate.
Oh yeah.
Never. I don't even know why I chose. I was just tired of thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, he drifted out of the band.
He did. He drifted out of the band because he was playing.
Yeah, he just got so busy. Yeah, we couldn't get him to rehearse.
You couldn't get him to rehearse. He got into the scene with Jack Grace at the rodeo bar.
Yep.
And those two had a great musical friendship. Friendship. Period. He was playing with a lot of really, really different kinds of people. And then he had this hyperthyroid condition, and he had what's called a thyroid storm and died. I just happened to be home. I just happened to be home in New Jersey from George Washington. And a friend of mine sent me an email. He's like, you got to pick me up and get me over to Brooklyn Drew's on a life support. He's not going to make it. So that was the last time I saw Drew alive. Was in a hospital bed, and the thing about it is he started Feather. He was at the beginning,
sure.
And the last show we played was a memorial concert for Drew Glacken.
That's right.
Now, not the last show, not the one in Hartford, but the one in New York.
Yep.
We had no rehearsal time. We hadn't played together in over a year.
Yeah, I remember.
And that was the best we ever played.
I think so.
It was just a 4-song, tight, kind of angry set, really. It was a very... I was playing that tenor Rickenbacker, which became kind of my thing, you know. And I had just, every once in a while you hit your effects pedal and it just produces exactly the right tone. You don't even know how you got it. And that really, really kind of, I had people that were coming up to me afterwards.
Yeah.
That said to me stuff like, I've been in your apartment and I've seen all your guitars, and I really don't trust people with a lot of guitars.
Sure.
But now that I've heard your band, man, I really, I totally get it. I totally get what you're doing. I got emails after, like, when is your next gig? Actually, we're kind of no longer a band.
Yeah.
And of course, when we stopped playing together, the band was really peaking.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. But then luckily, I don't want to run out of time.
Okay.
But luckily, we made a live album because we were lucky
totally
enough,
forgot about that.
Recorded a bunch of gigs, a handful of gigs at Joe's Pub and also in Hartford, which I was glad because not that I think the live album is the best album for me.
Yeah.
For me.
A pull from the flask.
Yeah, because we were just starting to, whatever, as these things happen.
That only came together because I came home from Amsterdam where I was living.
Yeah.
And Jim called me. He's like, I've been cleaning out my computer.
Yeah, I got remember these?
Yeah, remember these? I'm like, well, what are you doing next week? He's like, nothing. Let's mix it.
Yeah.
We mixed it. And then
I'm so glad.
There's a version of Temporary where he's singing a verse of Temporary. Yeah. That was my favorite part of it. Remember we were in the studio and all of a sudden it comes on and he's singing. I'm like,
yeah. Oh, that's right. And you're like, that's right. Remember, we're like, just sing it.
Yeah, just do it. And it turned out so good. It was really kind of... the funny part about that is the only tracks we could use were the ones from Hartford because the ones in New York were too fast.
Oh, sorry. My fault.
I tried to take blame for it and Jim wouldn't let me. He's like,
it's my fault. Yeah.
It's like, it's a whole different set of music.
Sorry. It happens sometimes. Sometimes
it was a big night.
Daddy takes the wrong pill.
Sold out Joe's Pub,
yeah.
Press in the audience. We had tons of people that were there to see us. Well wishers. People knew that we were kind of winding things up. It was just a kind of a wild night. But that was kind of what happened with Feather Merchants.
Yeah, we got caught right in the
lost in transition.
Yeah, where music kind of started to lose its worth. We were gearing up to sell CDs and it just
people were just stealing our music,
right? Yeah. We were just right there where the business fell apart right as we were kind of
exactly
just getting there.
I was starting to think that there really was no economic future for music, but I always believed there would be an artistic future for music.
And you are correct.
Yeah. So I never really, the next band I do, if I ever do a band again, it's not going to be in terms of, hey, let's see if we can make this an economic success.
Yeah. Well, nobody knew. I mean, we were still operating on that. There could be,
Yeah.
There could have been.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm certainly glad. Like I say, I would have been fine if that was if I were John Peckman, drummer of Feather Merchants. I would have been like, that's fine.
It was for me. You had great ideas. My thing was let him go, let him do his thing. That's what I said to Jim too.
Well, we had the right people, with Jay, because we loved songs and the music. It wasn't like we're not going to turn this into a funk band, or whatever. I know. We all.
We even made Temporary, which was really a Mr. Right song, into our own thing. I mean, ask Jim. I think he prefers the Feather Merchants version of that song.
Pretty cool.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool. All right, I don't want to run out of time.
All right, man.
Do you want to tell us briefly what you're doing now? So. We haven't been a band in a long time, but you and I stay in touch.
We do. I'm like I said, I'm writing a book, but I'm also working on new music. My secret plan is to put together a kind of ad hoc band in Denver, full of cats. There's a great music scene out there.
Yeah.
And release another record and see what's what with me singing.
Great.
And I playing a lot of tenor guitar. That tenor guitar Rickenbacker kind of became my thing.
That's your thing.
And that's really what I'm doing. I've got a ton of stuff other going on, presentations, articles, academic stuff, which no one would be interested in. But that's pretty much what I'm doing.
Cool. Far out. Far out.
You have to do a show on Disco Hell. There should be just one show about Disco Hell.
All right, we will. We'll get a round table.
Yeah. Get all of those freaks.
All right. We will. We're talking about getting together before Matt moves back to LA, just having like a, cookout with the fellas, going up there and getting some of the we should.
I'd like to see a little round table here, man.
All right. That would be cool.
Thank you so much for having me, man.
Oh, of course. But wait.
Yeah.
Desert Island albums, a few.
My Desert Island records?
Sure.
That would be the first Explosions in the Sky record.
Yeah, sure.
The Real Ramona by Throwing Muses.
Okay. Yeah.
Toward the Within by Dead Can Dance. Sure. I would go with a record by a band no one's ever heard of called 7% Solution.
Oh, that's right.
All about spaceships and satellites.
Yeah, you're always talking about
I know. I don't know why. It's just, it kind of got its hooks into me. I couldn't let it go.
Nothing wrong with that.
And if I had to throw a fifth out, and by the way, you could change any one of these.
Sure.
I would have to go with, oh boy. Jeez. Beck's Morning Phase.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
That was an easy, that's a layup.
Yeah. That's an Iceland album. I think that came out when we went to Iceland. I was listening to that then.
There wasn't a bad song on that record.
No.
So I'm totally with that. So that'd be my 5.
Yep. I'm with that. Desert Island Food.
Desert Island Food, I'd have to go with my mom's stuffed peppers.
Hey.
The Greek recipe would be pretty dynamite for me.
There you go.
Spaghetti and meatballs.
Sure.
I would have to go with mushu pork.
Okay.
And a big broiled lobster from the Palm.
Hey, sounds pretty good.
You got the deep inner stuff there.
That's
Chief.
good. It's things that I did not know.
The other 50 interviews I did, I never talked about this stuff.
That's what I want this to be too. It's just like things that you don't ask.
That's right.
Because everybody has.
I got to ask this stuff all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, it was. Let me tell you, even though it wasn't an economic success, I wouldn't have traded the Feather Merchants experience for the world.
Me neither.
The people that I met, I'll never forget them.
We're still
friends.
Yes,
I still love Jim, love Shannon, love Jay, love all those people.
Yeah.
Love all the people that Drew played with.
Yep.
His end was kind of tragic. Didn't have to be. No. And all of that experience, even though it didn't turn into us playing Madison Square Garden, I wouldn't have traded it for anything.
Right. No, I wouldn't have either. And I learned to come to terms with New York City because I grew up always hating it.
Yes.
And then I spent so much time there with you that by the end I was like, I got this.
Yeah, I'll tell you one other thing, and then we can wrap it up. When I was a junior in college, we entered an air band contest.
Sure. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
With Drew Glacken as Bono, me as the Edge, and a Dunlop tennis racket.
Yep.
The bass player was this kind of famous Haitian guy named Stefan Coles, and the drummer was Andrew Stanton, the guy that founded Pixar.
Wow. See, we're getting scoops here.
Yeah,
you can only hear.
And then
this stuff
and then the
here.
following year, Dan Weddle, if you've ever met him, he ended up taking the Larry Mullen Jr. role because Andrew Stanton left to go to Massachusetts, some art school in Massachusetts. Then he founded Pixar. He's got to be worth a couple of $100 million.
See, the things we learn here.
I know.
At the John Peckman podcast, that's the thing.
Yep.
There's things you can only find out here.
It's really true.
It's cool.
Yeah, I know.
It's wild. All right, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
I haven't seen you in person in a while.
That's right. Usually it's at the other end of the phone.
Yep. All right. Well, John Peckman podcast. I was here with Dr. Pete Veru.
That's right. I'll take it.
All right. Cool. Dr. Pete Veru. We spent many years playing music together, and he's here now, and we are not here now. I'm going to press the button. You ready?
Yep. Do it.
Okay. John Peckman podcast, Connecticut Valley School of Music and Dance, beautiful downtown Portland, Connecticut. Come over the bridge, go through one set of lights, start looking left. I'm getting pretty good at this. Listen, hear how you can have your very own podcast, your mobile podcast studio coming up. If you're listening and you, my friend or colleague, and you want to be on, don't wait for me to ask you. You ask me and let's do it. All right, that is all. Thanks, kids.
If you'd like to start your own podcast, give us a call at Connecticut Valley School of Music and Dance. Our professionally designed podcast space is here for all your recording needs. Rent out our studio to do interviews with up to 4 people, to record audiobooks, social media content, and all other recorded material. Our rentals include a private studio along with our professional-grade podcasting equipment, and we can customize your output to whatever your needs are. We also have green screen capabilities, which will expand to video capability if you so wish. So check us out here at convalley.net